Well, I had to admit, she was insistent. I would have admired that trait, if she hadn't been a woman. Glancing up, I watched the storm with narrowed eyes. It had grown somewhat since my last inspection, and the way it looked, it was still growing, at a rate of approximately 51% per minute. Too bad it was a storm and not my annual profits. Have you? Demanded a certain persistent female voice from beside me. No, I told her, but I have been in plenty of snowstorms. Meaning that snow makes you freeze. Sand doesn't, so it can hardly be more dangerous. Even if the storm is now growing at a rate of 64% per minute. I clamped down on the thought and continued on. Soon, we had reached the bottom of the valley. In front of us rose a small hill, and down that hill the storm approached with a velocity that, even though I would never have admitted as much, was beginning to worry me. A blast of sand shot past us, swallowing a withered desert plant. It disappeared from sight, as if it had never been. Maybe we should turn and... Nonsense, get a grip. You didn't get where you are today by being afraid of a little bit of sand. Please, Effendi. At the shout, I glanced around to see Yusuf galloping towards us. To judge by the look on his face, he didn't share my determination. Please, let us stop. We have to stop moving. The storm isn't dispersing, it's headed right towards us. We cannot. That word did not appear in my vocabulary. Turning to face the storm again head-on, I urged my camel forward, heading straight for the heart of the howling maelstrom of sand. Darkness. Absolute darkness, and roaring, tumultuous silence. Hot sand was burning my face, and my hands, and other places. Around me, devils were dancing in the wind, spitting fire, laughing at me. Faint images danced in front of my inner eye. Water, shimmering in the distance. A maw with great fangs, opening, ready to swallow me up. Memories, visions. I had no idea. Right then and there, I didn't care. Mr. Ambrose. That voice, that face. I might not be too sure about everything else, but that face was no figment of my exhausted imagination. Never in my life would I dream up a female this tenacious, stubborn, and beautiful. Wait a minute, what did you just think there? It had to be the dehydration. I was starting to lose my mind. Mr. Ambrose. Even as a hallucination, she was darn persistent. I could have sworn her voice was coming closer. The next moment, the figure of a muffled Arab appeared next to me. What the? It took me a moment to realize that the face behind the white cloth was not the dark-skinned face of an Arab. Oh no. Mr. Ambrose, sir, are you alive? Go away, he growled. What were the chances of her actually doing what I told her, for once in her life? Why on earth should I? She demanded. As I thought, 0. Memories were slowly started to come back. She wasn't a hallucination. She had followed me into the storm against my express orders, of course. And then, the rising winds, the fall from the camel, and then, blackness. It's not safe wandering around in this kind of tempest. I growled up at her. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, you've only just figured that out, have you? I told you to stay where you were. And I didn't listen. Now come, get over here. This was intolerable. Didn't you hear what I said? Go. I tried to push myself up, tried to push her away from here, back where it would be safe, but my body seemed to have different ideas. It sank back down, sending a bolt of pain through me. An indistinct noise escaped the back of my throat. Go, I said. My lungs are being shredded. You have a camel. Maybe you can make it out of here alive. Leave me to die in peace. Emphasis on in peace. Not a chance in hell. If you're going to die, I'm going to make sure your last minutes on this earth are as miserable as possible. How very kind of you. Something tugged at me. Apparently, my dear semi-wife had decided that there was a better stretch of sand for dying on than the one I was currently occupying. I looked up at her for the first time, really looked, and, underneath the stubborn mask, saw the fear flickering in her eyes. Fear for me. I tried to reach out to her in vain. My hand wouldn't move. No, leave me. Save yourself. In a flash, the fear was gone from her eyes. She stared at me suspiciously. Are you being unusually noble, or do you simply not want a girl to save your stony behind? Interesting question. And the answer. Both. She seemed to take my silence as an answer, though. Her eyes flared hotter than the desert sand. So that's the way it is it? Well, I've got news for you, Dick, my darling. She gave a firm tug on my arm again. Suppressing a groan, I slid a few inches in her direction. I've still got a wedding ring on my finger, and so you, however temporary it may be. Do you know what that means? That means that right now I vow in the presence of God, a camel and a buttload of sand, to be your faithful partner in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad, in happiness as well as in sadness, and even when you behave like a bloody arrogant idiot. Well, thank you very much, darling. I promise to hate you unconditionally, to support you in your aspirations as long as you pay me for it, and to honor and respect you as long as I get a free day off every week. This, she gave another violent tug, and I slid closer to the shelter of the camel, is my solemn vow. 31, I cleared my throat, spitting out sand. How moving. You think it's moving? Then move your behind. We have to get over there, pronto. She pointed to the dark outline of her camel, which was lazily snoring through the sandstorm a couple of yards away. At least Ambrose will give us some shelter from the storm. You, I rasped, somehow managing to stagger to my feet and stumble over to her mount, are going to change the camel's name. Oh, I am I? Yes. We'll see about that. Exhausted, we slumped to the ground next to the erroneously named camel. My dear wife started rummaging in the camel's saddlebag and, a second later, pulled out of all things a headscarf, pouring some of the remaining water from her flask over it. Here, she held the thing out to me. Put that over your mouth and nose. I gave her a look, the same kind of look with which I had sent gunslingers, highwaymen and aristocrats running for the hills. That is Arabian women's clothing. I will most certainly not. Smack. The rest of my words were drowned in wet cloth. I choked, trying to pull the thing from my face, then stopped. Somehow, even with the cloth over my face, it was suddenly easier to breathe. Leave it on if you do not want to choke to death. Came the voice of my beloved wife from beyond the moist barrier. If you do, be my guest and remove it. What was that about honoring and respecting me? I inquired from behind the wet cloth. You remember the conditions, don't you? I haven't gotten a day off since we started on this accursed trip. Well, then I have good news for you. Reaching up, I pulled the infernal effeminate cloth off my eyes. But, as discreetly as possible, I left it over my mouth and nose. To some degree, she appeared to be right. It was easier to breathe with the thing on. Oh yes, indeed. I swept my arm around, gesturing at the storm raging around us. I give you the rest of the day off. Thanks so much, sir. Her voice was dripping with sarcasm. For some reason, in the safety of the wet headscarf, I felt one corner of my mouth twitch the tiniest bit in some kind of muscle spasm. I'm going to the nearest cafe right away to enjoy a nice cup of tea and a piece of apple pie. You're welcome, I rasped, and don't forget. Whatever I would have said was cut off by a bellow of storm wind. Darkness descended around us, closing in from all directions, cutting off the sunlight as efficiently as a guillotine cutting the heads off the French aristocracy. Interesting. What in God's name? I heard my dear wife's voice out of the darkness. What is going on? It is going dark, my dear. You can tell that from the lack of light everywhere. Holy Moses and macaroons. Sometimes, she had quite an interesting way with words. What is happening? I decided that her limited female mental capacity could probably use some help in assessing the situation. The sun is dying, I rasped. What? Look, I stretched out my arm. It hadn't moved far before its end disappeared in a dark fog, thicker than the smoke from the biggest of my factories. And that was saying something. This can't happen. A storm can't block out the sun like that. It would have to be. I nodded, several miles high. No, that can't happen. It simply can't. Females, impressively talented when it came to ignoring reality. Apparently, it can. I felt her shifting around in the darkness. Bloody hell, no, was she still in denial? Women. She moved again. I felt her slide closer, and then, ouch. A hand grabbed hold of my ear and not gently either. This was intolerable. It was the second time on our journey she was trying to rip my ears off. Was she going to make a habit of this kind of thing? Grabbing her arm, I pulled her up against the camel. If she wanted to grab hold of something to soothe her feminine fears, she could just as well use it, and not me. Particularly not parts of me that I still intended to use for the purpose of hearing. I would advise you, I told her, keeping my voice cool and calm, to let go of my ear immediately. To her credit in the non-banking sense she did sound apologetic. Sorry. She let go, and I pulled her farther up against the camel, where she would have the best company and comfort available. It didn't seem to work as intended, though. After only a few moments, I heard a low whimper out of the darkness. I felt a sudden tug in my chest, and before I knew what was happening, I found myself asking, in a half-shout, half-whisper, what's wrong? What the? Why on earth would I want to know? I'm alone. The voice coming out of the darkness didn't sound at all like her usual voice. It didn't sound at all like a little fiery ifrit. It sounded soft and scared. I felt the tug in my chest again. What was the matter? Had I pulled a muscle? No, you're not, I told her briskly. The camel is here. That should clear up the matter. The camel hates my guts. Intelligent animal, though I couldn't see how personal feelings entered into the matter under discussion. I thought we had been talking about aloneness versus company. You're doing this on purpose. Doing what? Making me angry, came a growl out of the darkness. It sounded much more like her usual self, so I won't be afraid. In the safety of the darkness, I felt my lips tremble, wanting to shift into an almost smile. I clamped down on the urge, hard. Is it working? Yes, blast you. Indeed. That's all you've got to say. You're a bloody bank vault-like, close-mouthed bastard. Yes, now she sounded very much like her usual self. Why was it that her insults made me want to reach out and pull her closer? Usually, when people insulted me, they didn't live past the next dawn. But she was a different matter. How to respond? I see. I paused, again struggling against the incomprehensible urge to reach out into the darkness. Or rather, I don't see anything, in fact. That's so funny. Silence fell between us, or, at least, the absence of words. The whirling darkness battered against us, making the lack of words painfully loud in my ears. I had never minded silence, but right now. Mr. Ambrose. Her voice broke the roaring quiet, tentatively. Yes. She hesitated. What in God's name would make my dear, temporary wife hesitate? This had to be good, or, more likely, very, very bad. I feel alone. Bad, worse, terrible. I felt an iron fist clench around my heart. Definitely a pulled muscle. Do you? I don't want to be alone right now. Her words hit me like a fist. No, that wasn't right. I was very adept at dodging fists, but this I couldn't dodge. It hit me like a bullet. Fast, hard, unavoidable. And before I could think of anything to say, there was her hand, brushing over the sleeve of my tailcoat. My whole body stiffened under her touch. She had touched me before more than just touched. In fact, but this was different. There was meaning in every tiny movement, a meaning that I didn't entirely comprehend. I wasn't even sure whether I wanted to. Her fingers slid down my arm. When they reached the bare skin of my hand, I sucked in a quick breath, lost in the storm. Cautiously, almost tenderly, she brushed away a few grains of sand and stroked the skin underneath. What in the name of all that is profitable? I wanted to say something, wanted to order her to stop, to never stop, but something was lodged in my throat, blocking any words from escaping. When I finally managed to squeeze a few syllables past the blockade, I didn't recognize my own voice. I thought that sort of thing between us was reserved for the dark of the night. Her voice came out of the storm, sweet and soft. It looks pretty dark to me. A pause. Then, yes, you're right, it does. My arms came up, and, without asking for my permission, reached out towards her. During the course of my lifelong struggle for economic world domination, I had visited a number of considerably dark places. The fur hunting grounds of Alaska during the polar night, the catacombs of Rome, even the coal mines in my own native country, they all ranked quite high on the darkness scale. However, not one of them, it was my studied opinion, could compete with the utter and oppressive darkness that was now pressing in on us from all sides, battering us with sharp whiplashes of sand. If I were able to bottle this darkness, I could make a fortune selling it to countries suffering under prolonged heat waves. The something in my arms shifted, and I wondered if similar thoughts were going through its mind. Yes, definitely it. I didn't dare think of it as her, not now that my arms were around her, and she was pressed up against me in a way that was very distracting, intolerably so. What's that? A soft voice asked from somewhere below my chin, a voice that most definitely belonged to her, not an it. Damn, a cautious hand touched my neck. That's me, my neck. Was it only the sand that made my voice sound so rough? I tried to believe it, but the cautious hand stopped being cautious. With soft fingers it took hold of my neck and pulled me down, demandingly. I didn't resist. No, I mean that smell, the it that was as she whispered. Has the camel had something bad for breakfast? I felt a nose tickle my armpit, and had to fight the instinct to. What? Flinch away, grab hold of her and pull her closer. This was infuriatingly illogical. How could one thing motivate you to wish to take two different kinds of actions? I don't think so, I stated, shoving those enervatingly illogical thoughts aside. That smell might come from the fact that you have your nose buried in my armpit. Oh, what's that supposed to mean? A pause. The storm roared on. She didn't remove her nose from my armpit. You just thought, not, it, you're done for. Her voice was softer than ever before. I could hardly believe this was the same creature that had harried me like a little devil since the moment she had first stepped into my office. Like a little ifrit, my little ifrit, it's a nice armpit. My breath caught, and not because of the sandstorm. Her words stirred something inside of me. For a long moment, I couldn't figure out why. They were not particularly impressive words, after all, whether seen from a contextual, poetical or linguistic point of view. But then I realized that those words, spoken by that soft voice, were the first compliment I had received in years. Oh, people had complimented my wealth, my achievements and even, if they felt like risking their lives, my noble parentage. But no one, as far as I could remember, had ever complimented anything that was essentially me. Granted, my armpit was perhaps not my most stunning feature, but still. Instinctively, I felt my arms tighten around the creature in my arms that I could not think of as a she, and that still was so soft, so feminine. Thanks. Feels good. The soft voice from the dark hesitated for a moment, then, lower, so low I almost couldn't hear it anymore. It added in a whisper, all of you does. I felt like all the breath had left my body, but that didn't matter, because plenty of blood was still there, pumping hot and hard, shuddering the ice in my veins. What is the matter with you? What is happening? I tried to remove my arms from around it, but they wouldn't let go, instead closing tighter around her, for yes, she was a her, all softness and curves in my arms that pressed into me all over my body, setting me on fire. I had to let go. Had to. So do you. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. Suddenly, the black wind around us slammed into us hard. There was a cry from the dark and something soft and warm slammed into me. No, not something. Someone. Dear, merciless King Midas. Once more, my arms tightened instinctively and, inwardly, I cursed. God had really made an abominable construction error when he invented instincts. Oh God, the sound of her voice, trembling, hardly audible in the roaring dark, tore at something deep inside me. I'm scared, so am I. What had I just said? I was never scared, as a matter of principle, never, and, even if by some insane fluke of nature I were at some future point in time to become scared of something, I would never be so gormless as to actually admit it. But that wasn't the worst of it. Come here, I heard my voice say, let me hold you. What? Had I completely lost my faculties for logical reasoning? We were trapped in a sandstorm, not a snowstorm. Pressing closely against each other would not increase our chances of survival by one single iota. What was I thinking? That's the problem. You aren't. Period. Yes, please. There was that soft voice again, all scared and lonely, and yet, underneath all that, still strong, still fiery, still my little ifrit. Without thinking twice, or even once, to tell the truth, I pulled her up against me until our faces were pressed against each other, hard jaw to soft cheek, black strands to brown locks, lips to hungry lips. I felt dazed. Was this really happening? Were the two of us really? Could it be that? Rick. That voice. Yes, Lily. I'm glad you're here. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say any. I'm glad you're here, too. Damn. Really. I felt that irrational tug at the corner of my mouth again that I only ever felt when she was around. Not glad that you're here in the sandstorm, in imminent danger of suffocation, obviously. I meant here with me. Yes, I meant that, too. Good. Yes. A moment of silence, a moment of roaring storm winds. If only she would speak again. If only I could hear her voice, listen to that spark of fire. Lily. Yes. If we don't survive, I want you to know that I. At that precise moment, the storm gave another roar, cutting me off mid-speech. Just as well, because I actually had no idea what kind of wild, foolish thing I was about to say. The middle. Dedication. This story is dedicated to all my fantastic fans and fiery little ifrits. It is thanks to your fervent support that I have now been able to publish the second book of the Storm and Silence series. Firstly, there are all those awesome people who have either supported my writing by buying the first book of this series and actually bringing it onto a few online bestseller lists, or are supporting my literary efforts by subscribing to my chapters on radish fiction. Thanks to your help, I've taken a big step closer to becoming a professional writer, and I'm deliriously excited. Secondly, I would like to thank Grace Harris, who contributed to the Storm and Silence publishing campaign and didn't get mad at me for accidentally forgetting to include her in the last book's dedication. My sincerest apologies. As with the last volume of this series, a big cutload of thanks goes to Iris Chaikin, the wonderful editor who volunteered her time to edit this opus from front to back. And finally, I wish to thank every other kind of fan under the sun, composers of Storm and Silence melodies, creators of awesome fan art and fan fiction, writers of glowing reviews and readers who devour my writing. I love you all. In a very platonic, non-schmaltzy way, thank you for being the world's best fandom. I look forward to scribbling many more stories for your enjoyment, knowing that you shall be with me every step of the way. About the author. Robert Thier is a German historian and writer of historical fiction. His particular mix of history, romance, and adventure, always with a good deal of humor thrown in, has gained him a diverse readership ranging from teenagers to retired grandmothers. For the way he manages to make history come alive, as if he himself lived as a medieval knight, his fans all over the world have given him the nickname, Sir Rob. For Robert, becoming a writer followed naturally from his interest in his story. In Germany, he says, we use the same word for story and history. And I've always loved the one as much as the other. Becoming a storyteller, a writer, is what I've always wanted. Besides writing and researching in dusty old archives, on the lookout for a mystery to put into his next story, Robert enjoys classical music and long walks in the country. The helmet you see in the picture he does not wear because he is a cycling enthusiast, but to protect his literary skull in which a bone has been missing from birth. Robert lives in the south of Germany in a small village between the three Emperor Mountains. Other books by Robert Thier: Storm and Silence. Freedom is what Lily Linton wants most in life, not marriage, not a brood of squalling brats, and certainly not love, thank you very much. But freedom is a rare commodity in 19th century London, where girls are expected to spend their lives sitting at home, fully occupied with looking pretty. Lily is at her wit's end until a chance encounter with a dark, dangerous and powerful stranger changes her life forever. The award-winning first volume of the Storm and Silence series, winner of the People's Choice Award and Story of the Year Award 2015. ISBN 10-3513515. ISBN 13-978-3000513510. The Robber Knight. When you are fighting for the freedom of your people, falling in love with your enemy is not a great idea. Sir Reuben, the dreaded Robber Knight, has long been Ayla's deadliest enemy. She swore he would hang for his crimes. Now they are both trapped in her castle as the army of a far greater enemy approaches, and they have only one chance: stand together, or fall. Welcome to The Robber Knight, a tale full of action, adventure, and romance. Special edition with secret chapters revealed and insights into Sir Reuben's mysterious past. ISBN 10-1,499,251,645. ISBN 13-978-1499251647. Upcoming titles. At present, 2016, The Robber Knight, Storm and Silence and In the Eye of the Storm are Robert Thier's only books published in English. However, Book 2 of the Robber Knight saga, The Robber Knight's Love, is being edited for publication. Keep updated about the book's progress on the internet. Website. Facebook profile, Facebook page, Twitter. Goodreads, copyright 2016 Robert Thier. All rights reserved. This book or any portion thereof may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the author except for the use of brief quotations in a book review or scholarly journal. The cover of this book was created by the author using various licensed images. Disclaimer. This work is a work of fiction. All names, characters, businesses, places, events and incidents appearing in this work are fictitious. Any resemblance to real names, businesses, places, events and incidents, or to real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. This book is also available in print book format. More information on this and any other subject connected with Robert Thier's books on. Endnotes. 1. The Preventive Water Guard, simply Water Guard for short, was the predecessor of Her Majesty's Coast Guard, operating in Great Britain in the 19th and the early 20th century. Their main job was indeed catching those naughty people who smuggled goods into England and throwing them into the sea, instead of fishing people out who had accidentally fallen in. 2. Back in Victorian days, people hadn't heard of DNA, or to call it by its full name, deoxyribonucleic acid, yet. So romantic entanglements between such close relatives as cousins were quite common. In Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice for instance, both hero and heroine were intended for their respective cousins before they fell for each other. 3. This was actually tried once, and not by a curious scientist, but by a man who really thought that sleep was a complete waste of time. Frederick the Great, King of Prussia in the 18th century, was a renowned workaholic who only slept 4 hours a day, and once tried to stop sleeping completely. The experiment ended when he collapsed with colic after 4 days. 4. A Victorian expression for a certain part of the body. Can you guess which? No, you don't even have to let your dirty little minds go so far. It's simply an expression for legs. 5. A popular Victorian entertainment form, consisting of a mix of comedy, music and acrobatic acts. 6. One step up from a colony. A protectorate is a foreign country that subordinates itself to a certain extent to a great power. Sometimes this might involve having to pay tribute, or relinquishing control over foreign affairs. 7. I will leave you and your favorite Latin dictionary to figure that out by yourselves. Have fun. 8. British English insult, which means something like, badly smelling joke. 9. People who stuff things, particularly of the dead animal variety. 10. For those of my dear readers who are no experts in biology, salamanders are cold-blooded animals, which means they do not move in winter at all, or when they do, at a rate so it is imperceptible to the human eye. 11. I would like to point out, just because I have met with 1 or 2 people in the past who were offended by this term, that it is not at all derogatory. It is simply a term for Muslim that was predominant in the English-speaking world of the 19th century, and so I use it for reasons of historical accuracy. You can look its use up in original 19th century novels such as Rudyard Kipling's Kim. 12. For those of us who flunked geography in school, the Strait of Gibraltar is the name of the narrows that connect the Atlantic Ocean with the Mediterranean. 13. The part of a ship that is built on top of the deck. 14. The main port city of Egypt. 15. A full-length garment used by Egyptian men, similar to a coat. It is often made out of bright, striped cloth. 16. A Victorian expression for tongue, but, oddly enough, only a woman's tongue. I have no idea why. Maybe because the lady in question is literally smoking hot. 17. British English expression for very, very drunk. Apparently, English owls like to party. 18. The big, trumpet-shaped part of your ear around the opening that helps sound get in. 19. An Arabian expression meaning, hurry up. 20. An expression equivalent to the English, mom. Dear me, when I'm finished with writing this book, I'll be able to order breakfast in Arabic. That would be something, wouldn't it? 21. Actually, this is a common misconception. Warning, everyone who is no nature geek, please stuff your ears. Camel's humps are not filled with water but with fat. This fat can be used to produce water, but the moisture that is lost during the breathing necessary to produce that water actually means the camel loses more moisture in the process than it wins. So, no secret store of water in the camel, sorry. What really helps the animal to survive in the desert is its extremely efficient usage of the water that it does have. 22. The best way to render in Western letters the word, which is Arabic for the epithet bestowed by any loving wife on her slow-witted husband at some point, full. 23. An Arabic greeting meaning, peace be upon you. A rather optimistic way of greeting Mr. Rickard Ambrose, all things considered. 24. Son of a donkey. 25. Eat my dick. 26. Eat shit. 27. Warning, do not use this vow in real life if you are planning to get married, no matter how much you may be tempted. 28. The proverb Mr. Ambrose refers to here, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, originates from various sources, but in its most finished form appears for the first time in John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost, where he says, easy is the descent into hell, for it is paved with good intentions. 29. My apologies to Richard Jordan Gatling, the American inventor who in 1862, about 20 years after the events of this novel, invented the Gatling gun, the first real machine gun. I'm sure that in reality, he was not a front man for an incredibly wealthy, stubborn, close-mouthed and good-looking British financier by the name of Rickard Ambrose. No, definitely not. 30. In case any of you are wondering if this curse is a bit too modern for a historical novel, it is not. It actually has a very interesting history. When the British invaded India, the Indian currency was called damn. It was worth so little compared to a British pound, that if a British soldier in India wanted to say he didn't care about something, he'd say, I don't give a damn. The saying travelled, and the spelling was wrongly altered too, I don't give a damn. Subsequently, it was made famous by its use in the famous American novel Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, where the hero charmingly says to the heroine, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. That's a gentleman for you. 31. Warning, do not use this vow in real life if you are planning to get married, no matter how much you may be tempted.